Our next speaker will be Sara Flounders, and Sara is unfortunately in Nicaragua without a good connection, so she took the precaution of sending a video which we will play for you. But let me introduce her first. Sara, as many of you will know, is a longstanding political activist and author based in New York City. She is a contributing editor of the Workers' World newspaper and a leader of the United National Antiwar Coalition, the International Action Center, and the SanctionsKill Campaign. She is the co-author and editor of numerous books, including Capitalism on a Ventilator, The Impact of COVID-19 in China and the US, which she co-authored with Lee SiuHin, and the recently released Sanctions, A Wrecking Ball in a Global Economy. So please, can we have Sara's video? Thanks.
Communist Manifesto never gets old. It challenges each generation of the expropriated and oppressed. It's the most popular book printed, a bestseller for 175 years in every language. This is a living document of propaganda, agitation, and liberation. And thank you to the organizers of today's webinar for this discussion of an ever-changing working class. 175 years ago, the proletariat was tiny, a few million workers in abject poverty in mines and mills, child workers in Manchester, New York City, slaughterhouses in Chicago, new mills in Paris, Berlin, digging canals, laying railroad tracks, without any rights, any organization. Was the enslaved Africans in giant plantations, enriching the early capitalists, the most violent forms of capital accumulation. 175 years ago, in 1848, in a revolutionary upheaval, this new emerging class was just beginning to make its own demands. The Communist Manifesto was its opening declaration. Today, the proletariat is billions strong. The working class is still changing, still developing its organizational capacity. Each new preface of the Communist Manifesto in Marx and then in Engels' lifetime, up to 1890, each preface dealt with the explosive growth and changing conditions of the working class. Today, the working class, just in China, is numerically stronger than the working class of the US and all of Europe combined. Workers in China today are far more organized. They're overwhelmingly unionized in state-owned and in collectively owned and in capitalistic-owned industries. The Communist Party of China, a workers' party, is 96 million members strong. So there's big changes that have happened in our class. The Communist Manifesto is loved and quoted because it defines the revolutionary role of this emerging class. It analyzes the rise of the bourgeoisie, the role of the exploitation of labor, and its inevitable defeat by the new class that capital has ruthlessly created. It's a document of revolutionary optimism with a solid scientific basis for its optimism. It gives a history of class struggle on a global basis to be realized, embraced, and owned. This epic's distinctive feature, Marx explained, is the class antagonisms are now simplified. Society as a whole is split into two great hostile camps, two great camps directly facing each other. The working class would grow into the dominant class on a world basis, and the capitalist class would consolidate, concentrate its wealth into fewer and fewer hands, smaller, wealthier. But who could have pictured that the consolidation of wealth would be into a mere handful of multi-billionaires, while there's the greatest poverty in human history? Even UN figures confirm the largest gap ever between the super rich and the overwhelming majority. Let's look back at history. The spirit of internationalism, solidarity, emerging class consciousness among all workers led to the first international workers' organization. The early workers' movement grew rapidly. It built major unions, daily workers' publications, seats in parliaments all over Europe. Workers of all countries unite was the prevailing view. But as we know, that spirit of internationalism was smashed by imperialist war, by World War I. Working class leaders in every country surrendered to chauvinism. They went along with the imperialist war. They sided with their own bourgeoisie. Internationalism was reborn in the Russian Revolution just a few years later. It was reborn because a handful of communists, led by Lenin, resisted the imperialist war. They placed their confidence in the explosive change they knew was coming. That terrible historic betrayal of the working class leaders in World War I and that revolutionary revival of communist internationalism in the Russian Revolution is a challenge we face once again today. And we can be even more confident that this emerging imperialist war against both Russia and the People's Republic of China will have explosive results in workers' movements internationally. Who will resist and who will go along? The NATO military alliance and the emerging imperialist war will bring ruin. Now, there's so many changes in 175 years, but the working class is still the decisive force. The working class is changing radically by technology, by communication, by a globalized economy. It's more centralized and in communication all around the world. Just a few years ago, we were told that the big industrial centers were a thing of the past, that the working class was now dispersed, separated. But actually, it's in greater contact than any time in the past and more centralized. The working class of today is far more aware of itself because of the communications technology. What Starbucks worker doesn't know that there aren't thousands of other Starbucks workers and other fast food and chain and service workers increasingly in contact and organizing and able to be in contact? We need to look at these developments in technology and in our ability to organize. Revolutionary forces, those who are the most struggle-oriented, must find each other. What is desperately needed is a revival of a worldwide working class movement, a revolutionary movement that has a perspective of socialist revolution. We may be geographically separated and separated by a lot of things, but we are still dependent on each other. Workers in China, in Canada, in Europe, and in Russia, throughout Africa, Latin America, are links in a chain. Now, Marx and Engels explained in the Communist Manifesto that capitalism would bring new conditions of oppression and new forms of struggle. We have to expand our view of the working class to be far more inclusive and intervene to defend and organize the most oppressed sections of our class. Migrants in millions globally are intentionally kept unorganized, temporary, transient. Prisoners are the most exploited. Slave labor, yes, a population of over 2 million in the US and millions more on probation, parole, every moment of their life controlled. Workers include sex workers and LGBTQ youth who are part of our class that must be actively defended. There are millions of people with disabilities who are part of the working class but find it difficult to even sell their labor. All of this means reviving the communist slogan proposed by Marx in deciding who is owed what. That famous slogan, from each according to their ability, to each according to their needs. We need to fight the chauvinism, the bigotry that's pumped into our class that keeps us divided, the fragmentation, the backwardness, the sectarianism. To a large extent, it stems from years, sometimes decades, of setbacks and defeats. Today, we especially need to build revolutionary class unity on the basis of opposing US imperialist wars, wars for profit, wars for markets. Today, if we look at the sanctioned countries, more than 40 countries, a third of the world population, each country's national security is considered a national security threat to the United States. What on earth does that mean? It means that they're willing to do just as they did in the earliest days of capitalism, starve down entire countries, destroy them, try to root them out, do everything they can to bring down the working class, to destroy their markets and their resources. But each of these 40 countries have a working class that is determined to resist. So look at the world in a new way. The US may have the largest military death machine in history, larger than the rest of the world put together. And using the NATO death machine, it's attempting now to smash the global market that capitalism so ruthlessly created. But it's finding it's not all powerful. Countries around the world have options. The productive capacity of China, the GDP is set to exceed the United States. There's trillions of dollars of Belt and Road programs that are a new lease on life for workers resisting total domination by imperialism. There's new markets, new currencies, new exchanges that are opening. And each of these are against and opposed and reorganizing against a dying system. Even small Nicaragua is considered a threat to US imperialism. Why? Because any and every show of solidarity, of unity among workers and peasants, every collective effort is a threat to imperialism. So the struggle is ever new. New developments take a scientific approach and a struggle-oriented approach. Today, the United States is making every effort to destroy the global market they created because it's slipping out of their control. And in the face of this, we need revolutionary solidarity, cooperation, resistance. We need socialism, not capitalist chaos. A better world is in birth.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on the screen.